Hey everybody, it's Jen Bovey. I wanted to just talk to you briefly about how shame manifests itself into our lives. And there's typically about 12 categories. Some of them vary a little bit according to who you're talking to. But one of the first categories that shame typically shows up in people's lives and is appearance and body image. And I've talked a lot about body image issues and appearance. But how it manifests itself is that feeling of dread you get when somebody invites you to something because you don't have the right thing to wear, or that feeling of not being good enough because you're not thin enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not athletic enough, you're not heavy enough, you're not whatever enough is in the appearance and body image world. And so it's such a core issue for so many women. I can't even begin to tell you how many women I've worked with who have appearance and body image shame, and it's a real epidemic in our world now. I think that part of it comes from, I was having this conversation with a friend recently, and we were talking about how women have so much body shame and men just really don't. And I remember I went to a kind of professional men's clothing shop place thing with my husband, and I remember being baffled and confused as I sat there as man after man after man walked in, and he was just like, yeah, so like I've gained some weight and now I'm in this size, can you help me find a shirt or a pair of pants? And the guys working there were like, yeah, come on over, how about this? And he's like, yeah, that'll do, I'll go try it on. Okay, I'm done, I gotta go. And I'm like, hold on, what just happened here? Because that's not my normal experience. That's not typical for most women. We don't just go in and blurt out our clothing sizes. We've been taught to say those things in a hushed voice. The next area that typically shows up for in shame for people is money and work. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who have had countless quote-unquote money blocks that really were just shame. They just really felt shame around having money. They felt shame around being compensated financially for their worth. They felt shame about talking about money. They felt shame about charging their worth. And so in healing the shame and developing shame resilience, that allowed them to therefore start having conversations about money, about charging what they were worth, about asking people to financially compensate them for their work rather than working for free. The next area that it typically shows up is motherhood and fatherhood, and obviously I'm going to speak more to motherhood. But there are so many shame issues around conception. Can't get pregnant, can't carry a baby safely, don't produce or have enough eggs left. The list could literally go on and on. And it's unnecessary, but unless you've been there, I don't think you can really understand that kind of level of shame. And it boils down to your body betraying you again and again and again. Another issue of shame for a lot of people is family. And I think that this is kind of a twofold issue. I think part of it is because in those dysfunctional families, the 4 rules of dysfunctional families are really embraced, which is don't talk, don't think, don't feel, don't trust. But the other caveat to why family creates so much shame issues for us is partially because that's where we create our images. In the book, I Thought It Was Just Me, Brene Brown talks about how she has a lot of health shame because she watched her parents push themselves when they weren't well. She didn't watch them rest. She didn't watch them take care of themselves. She didn't watch them set limits. She watched them push themselves. Parenting is like the sky's opening for shame issues. We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna screw stuff up. We're gonna hurt our kids. That's just part of life. The sooner we can accept that, the more well-adjusted we can be. But there is so much shame potential in parenting. Mental and physical health kind of speak for themselves, but I'm going to speak for them anyway. People who have had a diagnosed disorder or illness carry so much shame. We talk a lot about the stigma. Physical health isn't as much talked about, but when you live in a body that's less than perfect, that's less than well, that's less than healthy, there's a lot of inherent shame that comes along with that. Addiction is another area, and that's also very shame-based. Again, the nature of addiction is full of shame. You have to keep a secret. Nobody can know your secret. You got to do these secretive things, and it just is more shame upon more shame upon more shame. Another category is sex. We live in a country and in a day and age where we don't talk about pleasure, we don't talk about masturbation, we don't talk about orgasm, we don't talk about sex. And so if I'm believing and enacting these ways in life, how are my children going to have sexually satisfying relationships? How are their children going to have sexually satisfying relationships? I want my kids to have healthy sex lives. I want them to experience orgasms. I want them to experience multiple orgasms. I want them to have the gamut of experiences. And we live in a world where that kind of talk is really frowned upon, actually. Aging, there's a lot of aging shame. We shame men as they get older. We shame women as they get older. We act like aging is the worst thing on earth, when in fact it's just a sign that you're still alive, so we should embrace it. Religion in of itself is a hot topic these days, but still very shame-inducing. Naturally, some religions are more overtly shameful than others, but still, if you have to hide something about yourself or about your religion, that's shame. Surviving trauma in and of itself is a whole nother topic that I like to talk about, and be on the lookout. I'm going to be doing a trauma course soon. But I truly believe that shame and trauma go hand in hand. There's so much shame for allowing, that's in quotes, ourselves to experience the trauma, and then there's shame for recovering from the trauma. There's shame for not recovering quickly enough. There's shame for not recovering in the stereotypical recovery way. There's just shame left and right when you've experienced a trauma. The last area that shame typically shows up for people is being stereotyped and labeled. I could do an entire vlog on that, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm just going to tell you that when we are labeled against our will or against our consent, it equals shame. When we're stereotyped, that also equals shame. So I hope this makes sense. If you see yourselves in any of these, let me know. Let me know how I can help you. Hope you have a great day. Bye.